Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Tales of Agmar podcast. Today, we're continuing our origin story series, and we're going to do that with Gander's story. This one's pretty exciting. Just, you know, I think the whole thing's exciting, but I have a good feeling that you guys will also enjoy this one. So, this does take place in the Ellonist Republic, just as like a precursor, and it's going to build off the reader or listener, in this case, knowing more about what the Ellonist Republic is, kind of what they do, right? So, if you have not listened to that string of episodes that I made a while back about the Ellonist Republic, and then of course that had a little bit about like Gander, Aster, Mace, I would encourage that you guys go back, listen to those, even if it's just like the very first one where I kind of go over like the Ellonist Republic military structure. That's going to be one that kind of comes up a little bit in here, and I don't talk about it. So definitely go look at that, get yourself familiarized with what the Republic military looks like, then come back here and watch this episode. Listen to this episode. Other than that, though, let's get into some other announcements. So, book-wise, the big thing, the whole reason why I'm doing this podcast, we're getting near the end of that really huge draft. I'm thinking it might be a few more months out just as I'm tying up loose ends, and sometimes I still get writer's block with it all, even though I've got all the notes and everything. But as soon as this like large draft, large tying of events together is done, I'll be able to do a good large edit, get a lot of things shored up, a lot of stories lined up and everything, timing, etc., whatnot. I won't bore you guys all with the details, but once that's done, then we're going to do more of a little bit more grammar-based one, just so you guys can actually read the chapters. And then I'm going to drop a couple chapters on some place. I'm still kind of shopping around to see where I would like to, because I want it to be in a free format for you guys to be able to find it, but also just in an open way for many other people that are also interested in fresh new stories to look at. So again, if you have suggestions, feel free to drop it in the comments down below. Anyways, and for that, I'm thinking I'm going to take a little bit of like Ganders and Asters chapters with a mix of some of Condra's chapters, and we're just going to drop those together in a single drop. I'm not going to worry about doing some like weekly chapter drop unless that's something you guys would like. I guess I should say I'm really still thinking about a lot of this because I do have time. My main focus right now has really just been trying to finish that book, not so much trying to determine how it's going to be first introduced to you guys, aside from what we've talked about in this podcast, right? Anyways, give me your likes, dislikes from what you have heard, and let's continue with these announcements. So, right, Ko-fi and Discord both still exist. Link is in the show notes below for both of those. And you're welcome to join. Sorry, the Discord's been a little finicky, but it should all be shored up. It's my first time really running a Discord, so if you joined and for whatever reason nothing happened, I promise you it's the right Discord. Just go back and join. And that's my bad. Anyways, finally, we're going to talk about the art. While it's true that there's not a lot, art-wise currently popping up for Tales of Agmar, I do still have a lot being worked on behind the scenes. It's just the artists I'm working with, they're in a similar boat as me, right? They've got school, they've got lives. It can't really be like one of our big focuses right now. Well, I guess that's not really true for me. My big focus is still Tales of Agmar in life. But anyways, I'm currently working with their schedules because we're not really stuck on any timetables as of right now, since I can't pay for a premium like that. But anyways, that's just this life, money kind of get in the way there, but that's okay. We're going to push through it. We're going to get this out there to you guys, the people, and it's going to be good. It's going to be super good, and I'm so excited. So, with that all out of the way, let's get going into this story. Gander sat across from his father at the kitchen table. Arms rested on the outskirts. A screen running the center length of the table. On it, their current war game was laid out. A holographic setup that contained a few different levels of terrain, as well as two different armies, one red, the other blue. He sent off a squad of his grunts to compete with his father's vanguard that was trying to take one of his trenches. After the AI game master ran some calculations, he waited as his father's team shredded another squad. That left him with 3 and his father with 5. He was starting to be at a major disadvantage. To remedy this, he started to think of a plan. Now, He knew that he was at a disadvantage, and that he needed to find some way to use his small remaining units, which consisted of just 2 more grunts and a more specialized special forces team, but he wasn't exactly sure how. He watched as his father set up another defensive, with 2 more grunt units and his own special forces team placed behind them in an overarching fire position. He realized that with his father's units in place like that, he would need to find some way to break into his backlines and defeat said special forces team before they could get a better position than they currently had. The game's AI game master once again rolled some calculations, and Gander watched as another grunt squad was decimated while his father only lost a single grunt. "What?" Gander said. "I can't believe you keep outsmarting me like this. How are you doing that, Dad?" His father chuckled a little, then imparted some wisdom. "This game, much like life, rewards you for putting people together that work well. You see, my grunts created a wall that caused your unit to stumble in its defensive action. Then, my special forces could get a clean shot and clear the board for the rest of my advance." It then switched to Gander's turn. He started to think a little bit deeper about what his father had said. Matching units together, creating combinations, walls. It's interesting. He was still trying to pick up this game, but then he realized that at this point he'd been treating each unit as its own separate piece, instead of something he should have been meshing together, matching them, just like his father had said, in a united front. That was exactly what his father was doing. This continued to turn the gears in his brain a little, helping him think of a tactic that he could use. Seeing that now he only had 2 units left, he needed to create some sort of way where he'd be able to clear his father's 5 leftover units while still keeping much of his 2 intact. He took a second to examine the board, combing over the terrain, looking at different angles, and he then realized there could be a possible strategy for his now smaller, more maneuverable force. He directed both his special forces unit and grunt squad into a small ravine, and instead of beginning to attack, he allowed them to have an oversight action in which they could attack on his father's turn, depending on how his father set up. "Ah," his father said, sounding a little surprised. "Going on the defensive now, are we?" "What else could I do?" he responded. "I'm only 10, Dad. You got me on the ropes." "Oh? Do I now?" Gander wasn't sure if his bluff was going to work, but thankfully this game wasn't just about what was on the board. It was also about what both players were thinking in their heads. And to win a game like this, you could run both sides. They'd only had it for 2 years, but Gander had slowly begun to grasp the basic mechanics of the game. The turn then switched back to Gander's father, and he took a minute to consider what his son had just did. Gander looked at his father's crinkled face with some amusement, as well as some ponderous thoughts about what his father would do. He watched as an idea seemed to form upon his father's forehead, and then watched as he issued some commands. What Gander saw next was rather interesting. His father decided to use his new overwhelming odds to corner his son on both sides of the ravine, leaving a special operations squad back in an overwatch position. Then Gander watched as his two squads fired back at the enemy, causing some casualties for his father. "Ah," he said, "looks like you got some lucky rolls, Gander. Can't say I've seen the pincher maneuver fail like that. Let's see what happens next." His father's units then began a firing order of their own. The 2.5 remaining grunt squads unleashed a fury of bullets into the now narrow section where his units were. Thankfully, because of the solid rock, he only lost a few grunts, leaving his special forces still intact, just as planned. Now that the turn switched back to him, he needed to think of a more proper way to overpower his father's remaining squads. He thought for a moment, then decided to scroll through the unit's abilities. another section he had recently found while waiting for his father to take turns. There had to be something here they could use to gain an advantage. As he turned one of the pages, he found it. Grenades. While it was a simple ability, he could have his injured grunts hurl them at the nearby full unit of his father's. Then, he could have his special forces clear out the smaller unit on the other side. He enacted the plan. First, the grunts threw their grenades. The system calculated the losses, and thankfully, most of his father's units failed their saving throws, resulting in all but one dying. Next, his special forces attacked the other squad. The resulting rolls annihilated the units, allowing him to push the squad closer to his father. "Ah, good move," his father said. "I was beginning to wonder when you would use the abilities." "Well, I was still trying to understand the rest of the game up to this point." "Is that so?" his father said. The turn then switched back. "I guess I shall have to begin playing with those two then," he said. That surprised Gander. Had his father always known about the abilities and just hadn't decided to use them? Had he waited up until this moment when Gander had found them to begin a counterattack of his own? Was it a way of him trying to level the playing field, to make Gander feel like he was winning when in fact the whole time he had been losing? He wasn't sure, but the aspect, the thrill, kind of excited him. His father's next move resulted in him getting the high ground with his special forces unit and starting an overwatch in order to again attack on Gander's turn. The other grunt squads that were left continued a firing operation, and miraculously again, Gander's final squad survived, leaving just one enemy grunt and his own special forces team. Now that it was his turn again, however, Gander had to think. There was still the single grunt that needed to be dealt with, and only total annihilation of his father's forces would win him the game. He quickly had the system run a standard combat between the leftover grunts, his one squad only losing one soldier in return. That's when the idea came to him. He could use the 3 leftover grunts as bait. If done successfully, then he would be able to pull his father into the firing range of his sniper that was in his special forces unit. Excitedly, Gander set up the trap, while also trying to hide his face. Once it was done, he set his sniper to overwatch mode and then passed the turn. "Ah, interesting move, Gander. Too bad it will cost you." His father hadn't chosen the sniper for his center of the special forces unit, just the standard field commander. Then he watched as his father activated one of said unit's special abilities, giving the entire squad an increased move distance. Then he charged into Gander's field. Once they stopped, his sniper fired off 2 rounds, thanks to another ability. However, one of said rounds missed. The other wounded a piece, causing him to leave the battlefield. After that, his father's final unit decimated his grunts. "Looks like we both just have our HQs left," his father smiled at him. Gander had enjoyed the game thus far. It was something he didn't always get to do with his father, between all the crazy work hours and the trips he had to go on for the Ellonist Republic, but he was happy they had little moments like this to spend together, though he always wished they could last forever. He stayed silent as he analyzed the battlefield. He needed a way to deal extra damage, a way to close in, finish off the squad, securing him the win for the first time in 2 years. Then he remembered something else. He had equipped his entire squad with extra powerful close-range weapons. Though it had cost him a squad member, it enabled him to have better combat in closer ranges. Gander knew what needed to happen. On a whim, he charged his squad forward, getting a reaction from his dad. "I wouldn't do that." Then the squad fired. His father's face was a mess of pain and pride for his son as the dust settled. The final squad fell, and Gander had won the game. "You're getting quite good at this game," his father said. "Perhaps we'll have to play with more units next time? Could we tomorrow?" We'll see, buddy," he said. "But for now, you need to go to bed." "Okay," he replied, a little dejected, but knowing of the situation his father was in. For the past year, the government has kept his father on call, having him work at strange hours as well as some strange places, most of which he couldn't even tell Gander about. He walked off to his room, father in tow. Together, they set up his room for the evening. Shades were pulled, the pillows fluffed, and most importantly, he was tucked in with the lights turned off. "Good night, Dad," he said before closing his eyes. "Good night, son." The door closed softly, and he quickly fell asleep. The next morning, when Gander awoke, there was no sizzling coming from the kitchen. He knew exactly what that meant. Another day without his father, possibly up to a week, or even a whole month. He sighed loudly, since no one would be able to hear him. Slowly, he got ready for the day. After a morning shower and putting on his school uniform, he sat down to eat some breakfast soup from the rations closet. He didn't really know how to prepare much else, so he was stuck with the orange-colored mess before him. After applying lots of salt and pepper, he dug in, loathing the manufactured taste, but at the same time, it was standard, just like the school lunch, just like most other foods. But his father had always known how to change it, spice it up or something, as he always said. He promptly finished his food. He needed to head off to the junior academy on Desmos before it was late. The walk there was long but simple. He headed straight until he found himself at a major intersection, and then crossed the street going left. From there, he continued past all the manufactured houses until he reached the school, pausing before the outside gate where the guard would check his ID. He double-checked to make sure that it was there. Even though he knew the guards knew him well enough, knew who his father was most importantly, that they would just let him pass through, Gander preferred to follow the rules. They were his best friend, especially since he didn't have any his age. Friends, that is. There was plenty of rules that were younger than him. Tons of people his age seemed to like him at the school, but he wouldn't have considered them friends, more so just acquaintances. They only talked, sometimes chatted, most left him alone. And he was okay with that. Sort of. He heard the first bell ring. He needed to hurry off to class. He quickly flashed the gate guard his badge, getting a thumbs up in return before the guard went back to lecturing a girl about not forgetting her badge again. Gander didn't have time to listen, so he continued hurrying up the stairs into the large monolith of a structure. Inside, on the first floor, to the left, he found his class, waiting in the usual room. Quickly he sat down and prepared himself for the Ellonistic creed. Their proctor rose and signaled the students to do the same. He stood in a parade rest stance as the proud song of his countrymen played. Then came the news on Uova, the most recent planet to go up in rebellion. The expeditionaries there were proving that the might of the Republic was something to fear. He listened as the casualty report was listed out. Very minor on their side. Extremely devastating for the enemy. The usual. Once the casualty report is finished, his favorite part came next. The creed. He filled his lungs with oxygen as he prepared the words in his mind, reciting them quickly before the class began to speak them in unison. For my mind, my labor, and my life, I obey the Ellonist Republic, a nation united in strength, unbroken in resolve, unyielding in purpose. Order is liberty, progress is obedience, victory is truth. In this I am protected. Through this we endure, commanding the future as we command the present. The galaxy becomes ours. Once they were done, he once again felt invigorated by the words. When they were uttered, he felt as if he could conquer the entire galaxy and bring peace to it in his lifetime. He sat down with the rest of the class as the proctor began to instruct them on the history of their great and glorious republic. As you can see here, children, she began. Gander tuned her out as soon as she began. He started to read over the textbook. He preferred to get his information in as close to the original format as possible. He felt that at times the teacher didn't relate the events of the textbook as well as she could. Alas, she was still a respectable individual and did not deserve to be reported to the PDF and Marine forces that stood watch over the school. So he let her be as he continued to read her book, and she seemed to do the same. Besides, As she was finishing the story of how their fathers had retaken Siger Ridge on the planet Calgary so many years ago, the second planet in the home system of the Republic, which story he had just finished up yesterday, Gander began to read the Battle of the Planor Nebula, the first major space battle for the Republic. He'd always been ahead in class all the years of his life. No one was more smarter or more cunning than him. Perhaps that was why he didn't have friends. All the adults liked him, though. His father would always tell him about how the planet's governor would compliment him about how his son was doing. It seemed to always bring a smile to his father's face as well, something he had been lacking the past few months as he had been asked to join another project. His pondering caught him off guard as the proctor asked a question, directed right at him. "Gander, what is the square root of 4? He whipped around, thinking about it in his head. In no time flat, he had the answer. 2, he responded. "Perfect." She then addressed the rest of the class. "Perhaps if you were all more like Gander, this entire section would have the highest scores in all the Republic. Until then, I'll be assigning more homework as usual." There was a mix of groans from the other students as she went over to her console at her desk to input the command. Gander already knew that he would find the update on a similar console back at home, informing him that extra work had been assigned and was due that night. It would be a pain, but only because it would take time away from him spending with his father. As the teacher continued the lesson, Gander began writing the more advanced problems down. He wasn't the best at math, but it was a subject that if he applied himself in, he could get it and get it right every time. The day ended in very much the same way it started. The national anthem was played and the creed was recited again. Then they were let out to eat lunch or go home to finish their work. If he was older, Gander could have picked up an after-school job or a club, but not until he was 12. He couldn't even join the PDF until he was 16. As he rushed out to the gates, he heard someone yell, "Slow down, Gander." He didn't listen, and instead received a blunt force to the head. He ran into something, or rather, someone. "Oh," came a deeper voice. It sounded like a soldier's, but not the fresh kind he was used to. This guy sounded as if he had already experienced more than what 1,000 Marines would ever experience in their entire service records combined. "What happened this time, Matt?" Gander looked up. This man, Matt, he presumed, looked down. "My bad, little dude. Your eye okay?" "Oh, it's definitely not okay." He could feel one of his eyes beginning to swell, but Gander didn't mind. He was focused on the insignia on the man's chest. He was an ace operator, the best of the best, and exactly the kind of person he wanted to be when he grew up. "Hey, let me put some of this on your eye, okay, little dude? Okay?" The man smeared a kind of jelly on Gander's eye. It stung a little, but then went away. "Don't touch it for a few hours, all right? Now hurry off home or wherever you were going." He waved to the squad as they left, then realized he had never said anything. He had just met his heroes and didn't say a single thing. Right as he was about to try to catch up to him, he then considered they were probably going off on a mission. And besides, he had a mission of his own to complete. He slowly retraced his steps home. Thanks to the fact that he was missing an eye, that was. Usually he'd done it much faster. Once he did get home, however, he found a notification waiting for him on the kitchen table, which was usually unusual for kids, but for Gander, not so much. It was from his father, probably about him needing to leave the planet again. He slowly moved over and opened up the notification. Sure enough, it was the same as usual. "Gone again. Don't know when I'll be back. Rations until then." He let out another long sigh and began to heat up some of said rations. While the warmer's AI did its magic, Gander connected the kitchen table to his console upstairs, allowing him to work on his homework while eating. It was going to be another long, boring week. All right, thanks so much for coming and listening to the end, everybody. If you liked the Creed of the Republic, definitely let me know. It's just a little something I cooked up while working on this. So, let me know that in the comments or the Discord. If I know the podcast is on a lot of different places, and so if you listen and you leave a comment and I don't respond pretty quickly, I'm usually pretty good at responding to comments. Hopefully we'll be on the Discord now that that's fixed. Then come pop in the Discord, leave a comment there. I would love to connect with you guys. Let me know what platform you're watching on. It's kind of hard to figure out who's watching on which platform all the time. But yeah, thanks so much. And also, oh, sorry, one more thing before I finish. I'm going to be checking the Discord at least once every day for new people. It's just a commitment I'm trying to make to help build this community. So if you guys, always feel free to come in, introduce yourselves. I will welcome you as soon as I can, and we will just have a great old time. A great old time, excuse me. And for all the stuttering, also, excuse me. I've had a dry throat this whole time. Well, thank you all for coming, and wherever you are, be a good one.